This chapter of the Odyssey, overshadowed by King Nestor's long monologues, hides one of the most important takeaways of the entire epic. Hello and welcome, or welcome back. Today we are reading the Great Books of Western Civilization, continuing with the Odyssey. I'm using the Robert Fagles translation, and this is Book 3. Telemachus, Mentor Athena, and their crew arrive at Pylos, the home of King Nestor. They have arrived in the middle of a day of feasting and sacrificing to the Lord of the Sea, Poseidon. Nestor eats a meal with them before asking them their business. Telemachus responds, asking the king for his account of all that happened after the fall of Troy, and if he knows what happened to his father. Nestor tells his tale, explaining that the army split into two after Troy fell. Half went with Menelaus to sail home immediately, while the other half stayed with Agamemnon to sacrifice to the gods for a time in hopes of appeasing them. Nestor had gone with Menelaus, while Odysseus had stayed with Agamemnon. Thus, he admits that he does not know what became of Odysseus, but he tells of the fates of each of the other captains from Troy, including Agamemnon. Telemachus explains the situation at his home to Nestor, and how he wishes that he had the strength that Orestes had to drive the suitors away. Nestor assures the young man that if Athena cares for him just like she has for his father, he will surely succeed. Telemachus responds that even the gods cannot help him now. Mentor Athena rebukes him for this, declaring that nothing except a person's death is beyond the help of the gods, and it would be much better for Odysseus to return alive after many years than to arrive soon, but dead, like Agamemnon did. Telemachus still doubts that his father is alive, but he asks Nestor to tell the story of Agamemnon in more detail. Nestor complies, explaining that Aegisthus was successful because he had a lot of time to convince the queen to betray her husband, little by little, year by year, and that he removed all of those people in charge of defending her. Nestor tells this as a cautionary tale for Telemachus not to be away from home too long, but he still suggests that he should go to Sparta to speak with Menelaus, even offering to send his son Pisistratus with him as a guide. Nestor then insists that Telemachus stay the night in his palace, at which time Athena reveals herself to all. She tells Telemachus to take Nestor up on his offer, while she will go to the crew and give them their orders to wait for him. She then departs in the shape of an eagle. All are astonished, and Nestor reminds Telemachus of his words from earlier. Surely he will be protected from harm, with the gods apparently being on his side. He and his people continue with the feast and sacrifices in Poseidon's honor before going to bed. The next day, Nestor's son and Telemachus take a chariot and begin to ride inland toward Sparta. I want to start on a humorous note. In the Iliad, King Nestor was known for his wise but very long monologues, so going into this chapter, I was definitely bracing myself. The chapter is only 557 lines long, and Nestor is speaking for more than 200 of them, not counting his short conversational responses. So these 200 lines represent his answers to just two questions asked by Telemachus. Do you know what happened to Odysseus? And tell me what happened to Agamemnon. That's it. Just two. This is not to say anything too negative about Nestor. He is not only very helpful to Telemachus, but he's extremely hospitable and even fatherly to him. He encourages him and affirms him several times, and he includes him in the feasting and sacrificing to Poseidon. He has him stay the night in his house, and he sends his son with him as a guide to get him to Sparta and to Menelaus. However, he takes a very long time to say anything. Is this important? Not really, but there's a joke about it later on. There are two interesting things to notice about what Nestor has to say, though, and they have to do with the themes we've been discussing in this epic. Nestor greets Telemachus and Mentor/Athena by casually asking them if they are pirates. Out on a trading spree or roving the waves like pirates, sea wolves raiding at will, who risk their lives to plunder other men? He doesn't ask this with all of his men, holding them at spear point before letting them in. He asks them at table, in his palace, after they've already eaten. Knox explains this in his introduction by citing a Greek historian named Thucydides. Thucydides implies in his works that piracy was not necessarily considered bad, and it could have even been thought of as an honorable profession. It is because of this, says Knox, that sea travel in the Aegean is only possible because of one of the customs that is central to this story: hospitality to strangers. We see this practice all over the place in the ways that Nestor hosts Telemachus, the son of his comrade, but also when he and Pisistratus get hosted by local lords on their way to Sparta. This is told casually, on the side, as if it's completely expected and bears no significant comment. It's ordinary. It was the expectation and the status quo that strangers would find welcome wherever they went. Zeus is the god that guarantees such hospitality, which is, again, necessary to allow safe and free travel, just as in future years, piracy could only be quashed by other great powers, like Athens, controlling the Aegean. Nestor tries to reassure Telemachus that perhaps someday soon Athena will bring about his father's homecoming, and on that day, all the suitors will be driven out at last. Telemachus responds like this: "Never, your majesty, that will never come to pass, I know. What you say dumbfounds me, staggers imagination. Hope as I will, that day will never dawn, not even if the gods should will it so." Isn't this an odd thing for him to say, given the circumstances? He's here to see Nestor, and afterward Menelaus, for the express purpose of finding out what happened to his father, in the hopes that he might still be out there somewhere. Athena, disguised as Mentes, even prophesied as much to him back in Book 1, the very moment that he was first inspired by her and then recognized her as a god. Here's that moment again. "Wait, I'll make you a prophecy, one the immortal gods have planted in my mind. It will come true, I think, though I am hardly a seer or know the flights of birds. He won't be gone long from the native land he loves, not even if iron shackles bind your father down. He's plodding away to journey home at last. He's never at a loss." Given all that, why does Telemachus say this? It looks like a crisis of faith, and Athena reacts to it as if it is. I think she's missing something important, though. In Book 1, Telemachus says this: "No comforts left for us. Not even if someone somewhere says he's coming home, the day of his return will never dawn." And later, "Clearly my father's journey is lost forever. I no longer trust in rumors from the blue, nor bother with any prophecy when mother calls some wizard into the house to ask him questions." I think that Telemachus hasn't been willing to let himself believe that his father would ever come home, and who could blame him? He says in Book 1 how the grief would be less for him if he knew for sure that Odysseus died at Troy, or if he came home only to die of illness or of age. It's the not knowing that leaves him without closure, unless he manufactures some for himself, by deciding in his head at a certain time that his father was dead. Athena time and again encourages him to take action, and he does so, probably more in the hopes of protecting his house than in finding his father. And what we're seeing in this scene is his firm insistence on not getting his hopes too high, especially after Nestor ended up knowing nothing about Odysseus' fate. However, Telemachus does change his words significantly after Athena's correction. He started off saying that his father would not come home even if the gods should will it so, and then afterwards corrects it to, "Long ago the undying gods have sealed his death, his black doom." Thus, for Telemachus, the ball is left squarely in the gods' court. Athena's response to Telemachus, however, is rich with meaning, despite her possible misread of the young man's heart. "Telemachus, what's this nonsense slipping through your teeth? It's light work for a willing god to save a mortal even half the world away. Myself, I'd rather sail through years of trouble and labor home and see that blessed day than hurry home to die at my own hearth like Agamemnon, killed by Aegisthus' cunning, by his own wife. But the great leveler, death, not even the gods can defend a man, not even one they love, that day when fate takes hold and lays him out at last." Within this line is hidden one of the most important takeaways of the Odyssey, but you've got to pry it apart a little bit. Athena admits that once a mortal has died, not even the gods can save or do anything for him or her. We've seen this in the Iliad. Several warriors were spirited away by the gods before they could be killed, and several others' bodies were transported to their homelands for honorable burial after they were killed, but no one was brought back to life. For the Greeks, death is final. But on the flip side, so long as Odysseus is alive, there's hope. Even though he's been gone 20 years, even though he's trapped on an island, and even though he wants to die. In a word, where there's life, there's hope. You've probably heard that before. Maybe you've seen it on a pillow or on one of those decorative signs that people have in their homes. Do you agree with that? With what that actually means? It's what the New Testament would call a hard saying, a very challenging sentiment for today. Athena says that it would be better to go through great suffering for years and survive than to die. So, it is better to live than to die. And if it is better to live than to die, then it is better to live with great suffering than to die. After all, look at Odysseus. He wants to die because he can't see the future. He thinks he's lost forever. He does not know, he does not see that things can and will eventually get better for him. But, spoiler alert, they do get better for him. It's a good thing that the gods give him what he actually wants instead of what he asked for because of his circumstance. The thing is though, we are all like him. We can only predict some outcomes of our lives by our own limited reason, not all of them. We cannot know our whole story until it's over, so we shouldn't judge it too soon either. Really sit with that for a while. Decide if you agree or disagree. We will talk about these same ideas and even differing views on them, both later in the Odyssey and in the great books to come. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and leave a comment to discuss the ideas that were put forward in this video. And if you want to get more Great Books content, please subscribe. Thank you.